Some
This
of you are
conference
asking
will
about,
now be recorded.
yeah, some of you are asking about the cost and you are concerned about the billing and so on, right? So in AWS, okay, if you go to services, you can either go and search for Cost Explorer. Okay, so here, if you go to Cost Explorer or billing, you will get clear understanding of how you are currently spending and how the forecast is. See, if I open my account, it is currently saying that the cost current month cost is $1, and then the forecast month end cost is close to $5. So we need to understand where exactly these costs are coming from. Okay, if I scroll down, you can see that I've created a couple of resources on these dates, and this has costed me something. Okay, and here if I just go to Cost Explorer, you'll get detailed utilization cost. Okay, so which services are consuming the cost. See, for the month of May, okay, I can see that the AWS workspaces, which is virtual desktop, has consumed the maximum amount, close to $40. Similarly, my next highest consumption has come from EC2. Similarly, I've got the tax based on my consumption. See, for the month of August, I have not used anything, so the cost is nil. Okay, so if you want to filter it little more deeper, you can just go to more and then you can filter by cost category. I was talking about tagging, right? You can also filter by tag. So if you have proper tagging for department or environment, you can also filter by that. So here, if I want to look at the resources usage by resources, I can also go and change it and filter it. So here, I can also have a report downloaded in Excel format, CSV format, where I'll get the detailed information on how much I'm spending for each of the resources. So based on this, you can go and clean up unwanted resources. This will also show the historical report as well as the upcoming estimation also. So here is where you can go and quickly identify what is the consumption, what is the monthly forecast will be. Okay, let me just go back to the home. So I can just open this if you want. Okay, you can also generate a report and you can get it. Okay, so let me see. Okay, and some of you are concerned about some of the costs that you're seeing in the event viewer and other things, but events are just a log entry. Okay, you don't have to worry about the event history and those areas. Those are all free of cost. So as I told you, you have to stick yourself within that free tier limit. And if you're sticking yourself with free tier limit, you don't have to worry about the cost and billing. So if you just go and check the free eligible category, see, if you are creating some services like RDS, you can run T2 micro instances and T3 micro instances and even T4G micro instances for 750 hours for every month. This is applicable for every month. If you're running this for 750 hours every month, then you won't be getting any bill actually. So you have to be limiting yourself to this particular limit so that you can practice all the different products and services within the free tier limit. Okay, so coming back, today we'll be discussing more about storage. Okay, but prior to that, I've already shared the email with the files that I have that you have discussed. If you can just go and open that file in your email, you will see all the details. Even you will see all the subnetting examples. You can practice by going through this document. And couple of you are asking me for exam preparation material. So if you go to my site skillupwithstan.online, if you scroll to the very bottom here, you can see study materials for exam preparation. If you click this view all, it will take you to a Google Drive where you can go and get all the exam preparation dumps materials here for all the exams for AZ 104 or for AZ 305, for AZ 700. Similarly, for AWS, you can get all the exam preparation materials here. If you're preparing for the exam, you can download this exam preparation dumps and you can prepare yourself. So you have to go to the skillupwithstan.online site, and at the very bottom you can see that study materials for exam preparation. Okay, also in this site you can see that there are some sample resumes, sample contents which you can also use for preparing your resume if in case you want to. Okay, make use of this, and you can just subscribe so that whatever latest update that I'm making, you will be getting notified in your inbox if you are subscribing to this. Okay, so this is what it is, and let me come back to the storage one. Okay, we'll discuss about storage now. Okay, all of you, I think, understand what exactly the basic storage is, right? You are storing some information, you are storing some data in a particular disk or volume or whatever. So, see, the data growth these days are very huge. You understand it, right? Everyone is generating data, everyone is generating a lot of information. So, these days, after social networking has groomed or has become a popular thing, everyone is taking pictures, everyone is creating video, everyone is uploading to different social networking sites. The data is growing enormously, so the data growth has to be managed. And if you are having your own data center, think about it, like let's not take the data center, let's take our example as home. When we purchase a pen drive or hard disk, it becomes full even within a short time frame. The reason is we are creating a lot of images, videos, documents. We are downloading a lot of movies, a lot of contents, and data is getting scattered everywhere. See, these days, like the data has become easily accessible. Everyone has got good access to mobile network, bandwidth, and everyone is able to download and keeping a copy of the same. So think about the same in the cloud storage. Okay, so everyone is dumping their data into the cloud, and the vendor has to manage it. So it is very tough to manage the storage growth, and especially troubleshooting a problem. Think about if Google Drive is down for some time, or if your Google Mail is down for a couple of hours, most of us will be impacted because everyone is relying upon that cloud storage, cloud documentations to refer ourselves. So data storage requirements is enormous, and most of you will, even some of you are answering that what is cloud. If we ask, like, you guys are referring to storage, storing data and so on, right? Yeah, it is a classic example. It is one of a good example that cloud is meant for, but it is not the only use case, right? So we are creating databases and storing it. We are creating containers. We are running virtual machines. We are running applications. So a lot of use cases are there. But data storage is one of the popular use case. So we are storing a lot of data on the cloud so that we can access it anytime, anywhere, whenever we need it. All right. So managing the data growth is a very challenge even at our home, right? So we don't have enough capacity. That is the reason we are going and taking backup to the cloud from your mobile or from your laptop or wherever, right? So you're taking these days, like taking backup to the cloud is very normal. And after we take it to the cloud, for the provider, for them to manage the availability, to manage the capacity requirement, the capacity growth, or managing the reliability and quick recovery, it is going to be a very big challenge for them. So they need to ensure that they provide the highest possible availability possible, and they need to troubleshoot if there is any issues that if it arises. Okay, so we need to understand how AWS is providing different options to manage the cloud requirements. So in general, there are multiple types of storages actually. So we can categorize storage into primarily 5 or 6 types. The primary object storage category is object storage, and we have got block storage, we have got file storage, and we have got queue storage, and there are other categories like big data and others. But the primary common use case is block storage. The block storage is what we use for our operating systems. Whenever you want to have a data store, you generally go and put them into a kind of block storage. Block storage and disk storage are pretty much closely related. Okay, because they are used for storing your operating system. They are used for creating a block size and then storing your application data, right? So object storage is mainly for storing object. When I say object, everything that we deal with is actually an object. Any unstructured data is an object. So for example, image, video, audio, pictures, or anything. Okay, so documentation, log files, everything is an object in terms of storage. So object storage is used for storing any unstructured data. So for example, good example of object storage, maybe you can think about Google Drive, you can think about Amazon Drive, online, any online cloud storage, you can think about it as a object storage. Okay, so we go and store our videos, audios, images, pictures. So on the back end, for example, for the front end, you will see Netflix, Facebook, and other YouTube and all those things. On the back end, they are using an object storage to go and store the data. Okay, so what is the advantage of object storage? Object storage, you can access it through the internet. Okay, you can use it through the public internet. So which means you can access it anytime, anytime, anywhere across the globe, whenever you need it, right? So whereas the block storage is not like that. Block storage is mainly a storage that is on the back end of your operating system. So if you have your operating system, you go and format your file system and you access that particular storage using the file system format. So maybe like what do you call? So when I say file system, there are many file systems that are there in the market, right? So if you think about Windows, it has got NTFS, resilient file system. If you think about Linux, it has got ext3, ext4, and XFS, and there are many file systems. So you format the disk using this file system, and you store the data into equal number of blocks or fixed size chunks actually. So before you store the data, you go and mention how much size you need, how much block size you need, and you go and make it into a fixed size and get it stored. So this can be called as a structured data because we are creating a structure, we are creating a block size, and then we are using it for storing your operating system data, and you are storing your OS application data and so on. Okay, so this is mainly for databases, operating systems, and application. The block storage or the disk storage category, and the block storage or the disk storage. Okay, so this is mainly accessed from the backend of your OS, which means you have to access it from the intranet. So the object storage will be either in the sandbox, or it might be in the direct attached storage, or it will be on the same location on the same data center. So the block storage should have to be in the same data center, in the same server room or the same location. You cannot have it in a distance location. So it has to be local or in the same metro location. So it cannot be outside of that. So when you access the object storage, how you are accessing the Google Drive or how you are accessing the Facebook or YouTube, you are using the regular HTTP or HTTPS protocol, and you are using it. Whereas here on the block storage, you are using the backend SCSI protocol, or using the iSCSI technology or the SAN FC technology to access the SAN storage. So it is already local to the system. Whereas this one, the object storage, you are accessing using HTTP or HTTPS, or you even using some third-party REST APIs you are using to access the object storage. So let me just give some examples: OneDrive, Dropbox, and so on. Okay, so if you ask me whether object storage has any specific structure, no, it doesn't have any specific structure. It is unstructured. It doesn't follow any size or schema. Whereas this one has got schema, or it has got structure. Before you go and store the data, you have to format it. You have to create a fixed size block before you go and store it. So if you think about object storage, they are actually little costlier. I mean, it depends on what kind of backend technology you are using. The block storage cost is little high, okay, because you might be using fiber channel storage or high-end storage, but then the object storage cost is comparatively low compared to the block storage. Okay, so now comes the question like how block storage is different from object storage, right? So sorry, how block storage is different from file storage, or how object storage is different from file storage. This is where the confusion will come, right? So whenever you are accessing any storage using a network file system protocol, or using your Microsoft common internet file system like CAFS, so you are creating a file share in the network, and you are accessing it using file protocols or file access protocols using maybe FTP or SFTP or any kind of file transfer protocol. So the main difference is how you are going to access it. So here we are storing the data into the file share, and when you want to access it, you are mounting it in a particular server, or you are mapping it to a particular server, and you are accessing those file shares. So that is the difference. So you are accessing using HTTP, HTTPS, and other REST API protocols. Here we are accessing it using tools like NFS, CFS protocol, network file sharing, common internet file system, FTP, SFTP, and those file transfer protocol. Here, everything that we access are stored as files, and you are retrieving, accessing, and using the files actually. So the use cases will be, you might be storing the departmental file share, or you might be storing your organization's important files, all those things. So you store it in a file format and then you retrieve it. So that is the main difference. So if you're even in the object storage, everything that we store is a file, but the way that we access is different. So here we access it using HTTP, HTTPS protocol, whereas in the file storage, we access it using NFS, CAFS, FTP, and the other protocols. Okay, so even the file storage should have to be in the same location. It cannot be in a distance location. So again, it's like a intranet or in the same location. Okay, intranet or in the same location. It has to be local. Okay, you cannot mount it in a very remote distance. And cost is comparatively cheaper, but it might be high based on the technology. For example, in some organization for file shares, they are using NetApp for file shares. Okay, if they are using NetApp storage or some purpose-built storage, then the cost will increase, because like the NetApp technology, they ask for more cost, and it provides a lot of additional features, functionalities. It has to be a separate physical device. It provides a lot of features and functionalities. So the cost will be a little higher if you're going for third-party file shares like NetApp and other technology. So now comes the other category, which is queue storage. So maybe we might have heard about object storage, we might have heard about file storage, but queue storage might be new to some of you. The reason queue storage might be new, see, this is mainly for storing messages. So whenever you have two different applications, let's say I have um, one application, and from this application, okay, so from this application, I want to talk to another application. Okay, so I have app one. Okay, so see, in most of the application, we might not have an inbuilt storage to store the messages or data. See, let's take an real-time example. So when you are going and ordering a particular product, or let's take like we are ordering pizza for our lunch. So there, the application that receives the pizza order will be received in one particular application, and once after the order is done, it has to send it to another application to process the order to the particular see, for example, when you log into the pizza portal, it will take you to the common centralized portal. It will not take you to the specific location where exactly the pizza is going to be, the food is going to be prepared, right? So the primary application will receive the request, and then the primary application should have to send the message to the location on where exactly the food has to be prepared, and so on. So when the application has to talk to each other, then they cannot use the local message store on that particular application. Instead, there should be somewhere in the network which should store the message. See, for example, we cannot assume that this application will be always online, or this application will accept all the connection. So there should be somewhere in between in the network where we should store all the messages, right? So that is where the queue storage comes into place. So this is where the queue storage will store the messages, and then it will guarantee that it will always at least try to deliver the message at least once to the next application. If the application is busy with other orders, or if it is already receiving multiple messages, then the messages will be stored in the queue, and it will try to deliver the message once after the queue is freezed, or once the queue is available to accept any new orders. Okay, so message queuing is mainly to handle the messages between one application to another application, right? So this is what queue storage purpose is. Any application, most of the application will not have inbuilt storage to store any messages or any particular information to pass it on to the other system. So in that case, like, we need to have a message queuing system. So there are many message queuing systems that are available in the market. So IBM has got MQ. There is something called MSMQ, Microsoft Messaging Queuing, and even your AWS has got simple queue service. So that will go and use it for queuing the messages. If you want to send some messages between one application to another application or distributed application, then you need to use the AWS SQS to integrate the different application to have the messages shared between them. Okay, so that is the main use case of Q storage. Q storage, like it is a software as a service. Okay, so you don't have to really worry about the cost. It is cheaper than setting up your own queuing system. You can also set up your own queuing system. You can go and create a couple of servers and then install the IBM MQ or MS MQ and set it up. But Amazon is providing it as a service. You can go and just start using it by configuring a queue and then start storing the data into that. So it is always good to have the software as a storage category, because you don't have to maintain the OS, you don't have to maintain any of the backend systems and so on. Okay, now let's discuss a little more. Just a second. So we'll talk about each and every storage categories. Okay, so we'll talk about S3, Glacier, the other examples. So now, so far, we have discussed only on block storage. We talked about EBS, Elastic Block Store and Instance Store, right? This is the backend for your EC2 instances. So these are the primarily used um, block storage, EBS volumes and instance store volumes. This is mainly for your EC2 backend. Okay, file storage, we'll create the file storage. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, we have got file shares in AWS. Okay, there are multiple category. We'll see a demo on that. But object storage, we have S3, Glacier, and then other examples. Okay, queue storage, we have already captured it, AWS SQS. And besides this, also there are some other big data services that are there. So when it comes to storage, there are 4 areas we will be having challenges. So when I say 4 areas, the primary area will be to handle the capacity growth. Okay, so by default, Amazon provides you object storage as a service, or they are providing storage as a service. So capacity is virtually unlimited. You can go and expand your capacity to meet up the requirement. But when you deal with capacity, the capacity can grow exponentially very quickly. So you have to be very careful and clean up the unwanted files or clean up the temp files very frequently, so that you don't accumulate having a lot of unwanted files. See, even your mobile storage gets full with a lot of junk data, a lot of temporary files, a lot of unwanted files, right? So you are also doing routine cleanup and making sure that you are using the capacity to the required data, right? Similarly, in organizations also, you will face this challenge, but it will be across department, right? So here in your mobile, you can decide and clean up what you want to clean up. But in the organization, multiple departments, multiple people will be storing it. So you have to work with them to understand which files are needed, which files are not needed. You have to give them the report of what they have consumed, and they will help you to do the cleanup. Next thing is durability. So in AWS, they are offering up to 99.99 of nine nines of durability, which means I already explained this the very first day, right? So if you're storing 10,000 objects in an object storage, one file can go missing in 1 million years. That is the level of durability they are saying. So data in AWS, they are redundantly stored. At least they are having 3 different copies stored in 3 different physical storage. So so that it is very highly scattered, and it is very highly distributed. So the data are stored across multiple facilities, multiple devices, and even if there is a natural disaster or human error or any mechanical fault, when I say mechanical fault, disk failure or any component failure, so AWS will automatically recover, or the data will still be accessible, because the data is getting stored on at least 3 different facilities or 3 different devices. So next thing is availability. So availability of the service, how they are ensuring. Then next thing is the security for the data that you are storing. So these are the 4 important areas when it comes to any storage vendor. So availability, all data should be available when needed. But there is a difference between production data and archive data, right? So archive data, for example, if you take medical industry, there might be some historical information. So there will be some surveillance camera details or some x-ray details of a patient, or they have to store in, if you go to US or Europe, they have a very strict rules, like they have to have the data of a patient for last 20 years or 30 years. So GDPR is an act which mandates that requirement. So in certain industry, we have to store the data for 20 years, 30 years, and more than that. Similarly, even if you are maintaining financial transaction, you have to have last 30 years banking transaction that you are making. So data, like production data is different, and historical data is different. Historical data, we call it as archive data. So you have to handle all those important data. So archive data might not be available immediately. See, for example, I'll give an example. If you are going and logging into a banking site, and if you are looking for last 3 months or last 6 months statement, you will immediately get it because it is live production data. But if you are asking for last 6 years data or last 10 years banking transaction, they will take some time to retrieve it and provide it, because they have already archived it. They have put it into a cold storage or a long-term storage, and they will retrieve it back to you. Okay, so that is how it is. So availability, so you need to understand like what exact requirements are, and you have to balance the retrieval time and the storage. Security, like all the data that you store is encrypted by default in AWS. Okay, so they use backend technologies like S3 triple encryption, or they use a lot of encryption standards, data encryption standards to store it, and then the data is encrypted both at rest, meaning like when it is stored and as well as when it is being copied or when it is in transit. So data is encrypted both in transit and at rest. So permission, access control, all these things, you have to manage it. You have to give right permission to different people. So when you talk about storage, these four areas will be the areas we need to carefully deal with and handle it. Okay, the capacity growth, durability, because everything will impact financially. You will, if the capacity is growing too much, then organization have to pay for it. If the data is not available, then the business will get impacted. Even if the data is stolen or if it is misplaced, then there is also a challenge actually. Okay, so okay, let's see. 1 second, I'll just respond to this. So when we talk about performance, see, whenever there is a performance expectation, block storage will handle the OS, database, and all those things, right? So the performance is very high, or the performance is comparatively high. Okay, there is a strong performance here, but object storage, see, no one looks at accessing the data which is stored in Facebook, or the data that is stored in the online storage. They are not looking for the same business critical speed. So the performance is medium, but still the data is accessible at a considerably good speed. Okay, so file storage is mainly used for data that are infrequently accessed. Okay, so here with object storage or block storage, data are frequently accessed. So you are storing the data that are accessed on a daily basis, either it is database or OS. So it gets accessed on a daily basis. Whereas in file storage, you store the data which are not frequently accessed, but it will be accessed at infrequent intervals, like departmental file share, or any kind of your own home drive. Home drive means each user will have their own specific data. That is what we call it as home drive. And here again, it is more infrequently accessed data. Okay, I would say this is infrequently changed data. So here we might access it, but we might not change the data very frequently. Okay, now let's talk about the AWS specific storage offering, what kind of storages they offer, and how do we relate it. Okay, and also we'll also see it in practical. Okay, from AWS, we have got four main offering. Okay, there are many other storage offering, but these are the four main services which they offer. Okay, maybe AWS EBS, that is Elastic Block Storage, and AWS S3. and Glacier. These are all object storage. And we have got Amazon AWS EFS, Elastic File Storage. There are EFX, there is FSX, and other storage also. These are all file storage. And we have got AWS SQS, which is queue storage. Okay, so we have already talked about EBS volume, how to create more volumes, how to attach it to EC2 instance, and all those things. So EBS volumes are mainly created as EBS volumes, and we attach them to EC2 instances for consumption. Whereas now we'll go and see how to create S3 storage and how to create S3 bucket and store the data there. Okay, if I go to services, so you have different sections, right? Compute, network, and other things. Here we have the storage, and within the storage, we have these many different storages. Today, we'll discuss mainly on these topics like AWS backup, EFS, FSX, and so on. So we'll start with S3. S3 is the production storage, whereas AWS S3 Glacier is the archiving storage. So if you want to store something in S3, the very first thing you need to create is um, the bucket. Okay, let me delete it. Okay, before deleting the data, the bucket should be empty. Okay, so you cannot delete the bucket if there is some data inside that. So how do we do that? You have to go to the bucket first, and then select it, and then first empty the bucket. Okay, bucket, so empty, and then it will ask to type permanently delete, and you can just go and say permanently delete the data, and then delete it. Okay, first empty it. Okay, it has successfully emptied the bucket. Now after you exit, you will have the option to delete it now. So it is asking for the bucket name. I'll just copy the bucket name and type it here or enter it here. Okay, now we have a clean S3 console. So if you want to store, retrieve any data and access it anywhere, S3 is the solution. So S3 is the object storage solution from Amazon, and it is mainly used for storing um, the data that needs high performance, security, and compliance. Okay, so now let's go and create a bucket. So every object that you store in S3, it has to be stored in a bucket. So you have the first thing, if you want to work with S3, you need to go and first create a bucket. So bucket, it has to be unique across the globe. Okay, because this is internet storage, right? It's unlike your other storage. This storage is actually accessible from the internet. Since it is internet storage, the name has to be unique across the globe. You cannot, for example, if I'm using to create a bucket name Stan or something, it might already be used. Okay, because it's a common name, right? Let me try to create it. So it might send me an error. Okay, so it says bucket name must be globally unique and must not contain any spaces or uppercases. Even if you go and create it with uppercase, it will throw an error. Okay, let me try that. I can just try to type it STAN and let's see. And let me scroll down. Okay, for testing purpose, I'm not just going to block public access. I'll just enable it just for testing purpose first. Okay, let me create a bucket. It says, I mean, there will be error now, message. Okay, it says bucket name must not contain uppercase. Okay, let me try to change the uppercase and make it lowercase, and let's try it. Even it says bucket with same name already exists. So I have not created it, but someone else have already used that name. So you have to have a unique name across account, across the customer environment. For example, let me try to create something like precision test bucket 1. Okay, this might not be used because this might be a unique name. No one might have used this already, and let me try to create it. So it has got created, which means this name is free. No one has used to create it. Okay, it has successfully created a bucket, and once after you create a bucket, you can start storing the data like how you used to do in your your Google Drive or any other online storage. You can just click upload, and you can start adding the files, folders. You can create file folder structure here, and I can just start uploading it. For example, I can just go and create some files here. Okay, it is taking some time. Okay, let me go and create it directly. Okay, I'll call it as Hitesh. Okay. Okay, I'll create it as on waiter. I'll just give some names. Okay, and I'll just upload it. Okay, so I'm just going to upload this test file. I can just select the entire folder and then upload it. You can either upload a folder or I can upload only the files also. See, it is saying me also I should I upload all the files also. So it has uploaded both the files as well as the structure from which folder it has uploaded it. So it is saying it is a text, it is a plain text file. Okay, now I can just click on upload. It is uploading it now. So if I go and look at it here, it has uploaded both the files, okay, under this particular folders. And I can manage the configuration of the permission, who should access, who should have read access, who should have write access, and other things. So let me close this. Now, if I go back here, you can see that the precision bucket is there and the test 22 folder is there. You can either upload a folder. When you go and click upload, it gives me two options: either add a folder and upload all the files, or just add the files alone. So now I'll try to create one more sample file here. Okay, I'll call it as maybe index.htm kind of. Okay, I'll just edit this with Notepad. Welcome to AWS S3 storage session. So now here, I mean, if you know like some small HTML, you can also just add it as a heading or a title. Okay, if you want. Okay, so you can just say title is AWS storage session. So you can just type also, okay? You need not type any HTML tag, but if you type tag, it will be much aligned. So now I'm just going to upload this index.html file, okay? So I can just click upload. I'll click on add files and I can select the file and upload it. So now once after I upload it, so I can see that the file is here. Okay, I can just select the file and then I can copy the URL and then I can try to access the URL from here. See, it says currently the permission is access denied because I don't have access to that file. So if I want to give access to the file, we can go to actions and then check what is the permissions that we have, and we can also change it. So as of now, maybe the bucket is not what you call public. So there are two different things. So you can access the URI. URI stands for unique resource identifier. URL stands for unique. I mean, it's a unique resource loader. I mean, it's like a link actually. So it's a unique link. It's a unique identifier here. So if you're copying the S3 URI, it might work here. So it will open up. Okay, let me check. So let me open that. If I click on open, it will open up the welcome to AWS S3 storage session. And on the top, you can see the title is here, AWS storage session. This is the title and this is the heading. So you can actually try to change the permission now. If I go to permission, so as of now, objects can be public, but I don't think block public access. So no one is having access now. So let me just close this. Okay, just select this. Okay, it says make public using ACL. I'll also do that. Okay, let me go to the management. So we'll talk about these management related things one by one. But before that, let me look at the properties here. Okay, currently the versioning is disabled. A lot of options are still disabled. Okay, I will talk about all these things one by one. Okay, let me come to the bucket here. They have a lot of options here. I can copy or move the data to another folder. So by mistake, if I have copied the folder in the root folder, I can just click on move and then say where exactly I want to move. I can move it to any different object or different bucket, or you can also move it to a different location also. So the destination can also be in a different location. So I can move it to a different bucket, different access point, and so on. So here I can go and browse it. I can just select which folder I want to move, and I can choose the destination and move it. Okay, you have that option also. You can copy, move, and also you can copy the checksum functions, permissions, and other things along with the file copy. So now it has moved the object. Okay, so this way it's not like moving within the same bucket. You can also move it to another bucket or another location, and the options are possible. See, the important thing is when you go and select the S3, you don't have the option to go and choose a specific region, because S3 is a global service. So it doesn't allow you to go and actually select the region. So instead, but when you go and create a bucket, the bucket has to be created in specific region that will be closer to the end user location. So if you are planning to access it from India, or if you're planning to access it from Singapore, you have to create it, select the specific region which is closer to the user location. So now let me try to explain few more things. So as of now, the bucket versioning is disabled. So when you are talking about bucket versioning, so versioning will keep multiple versions of the same file. See, for example, if you're working on a new application code, or if you're working on some template, then there might be a newer version that you will be modifying on a daily basis. So if you're modifying it, then the older version will become overwritten, right? Or you will not have access to the older version. So if you want to have access to the current version and older version to kind of roll back, or if there is some issues identified, you might have to go and roll back it to the previous version of the file. Right? In such cases, you can just go and enable this versioning, and this will help you to go and roll back. This is something similar to snapshot, but it is not exactly snapshot. So it is mainly for file level versioning. I can edit it and I can enable it. See, the important thing is versioning. It will keep multiple variants of the same object in the same bucket, and you can use versioning to preserve, retrieve, restore the version. So let me show you an example. Okay, one more thing, you cannot you cannot disable the versioning, but you can only suspend the versioning. Okay, some of you might have question whether the additional copies will be a separate cost. Yes, it will be a separate cost. Okay, so whatever number of copies you are keeping, all those copies will be a paid copy. Okay, it's not free actually. So whatever number of versions you have, it has to be paid. So after I enable the versioning, okay, if I just go and upload some new content or new version, so let's do one thing. Let's go and make some minor modification. I'll just say uh, Peter. I'll just say Samim, and I'll just close this. Okay, now I'm just going to upload the file which is already having, on the same location where the file is already present. Okay, I'll going to upload now. See, when I upload it, it is uploaded successfully. But then it says the information below will no longer will be available after you navigate from this page. But see, if I go to the file, Okay, it is opening up the file, and it says like permission, the size of the file. It is saying that it is a text file and a lot of information. Even it provides me an object URL also. I can just copy the URL and then try to see the URL. Okay, it is also saying permission denied because I have not opened the permission completely. So here, if I want to check where exactly the versioning is currently, okay. Oh, I thought it is enabled already. Okay, it's enabled now. Okay, now go to the versions. See, currently it has got the current version. Okay, now if I want to just go and change it again, okay, I'll add Karthik, then I'll upload it again. Okay, now if I go to the file, you can see that there are multiple versions of the same file. Okay, the current file, I mean, the earlier file was 23 bytes, and now it is 36 bytes. And I can go and select the current version and download, or I can even select the previous version and download. So how do we go and open it? I can just click on this open to check what is the content inside this. Okay, it has got all the latest content. But then if you go to the previous version of the file, the null one, I can also open that particular file. So it has got the previous content. So whichever version you want, you can go and download that specific version, whichever you want. Even if you're making some new application code or new infrastructure template or anything that you are preparing, if you want to roll back or if you want to go to the previous version, you can make it as a quick fix actually. Only this will be available when you go and enable the version. Okay, you can also go and make this particular file as the current version also, so that whoever wants to access the previous version, you can also do it. And you can also go and delete the current version also. Here you have the option to delete specific version. So if I go and delete it, it will go and permanently delete it. Let me just do that. Okay, it is deleting it. So now if I go to close and then go to the version, now you can see that this is an interesting option here. I'll explain this. Okay, it's opening up. Let's see. So you can see that there is only one version because the previous version is deleted. Suppose if I want to have access to the deleted content, or if someone is accidentally deleting it, I can do two things. One is that you can go and enable object lock. So object lock will allow you to avoid any accidental deletion. This is mainly to write the file once and then read it multiple times whenever you need it. So this will avoid any accidental deletion or accidental overwrite. So object lock can be enabled on your S3 bucket. Okay, this is mainly to prevent any accidental modification or deletion so that your code will not be deleted or overwritten. The next option is, if you go to the top, okay, go to this particular bucket. Okay, requester stands for acceleration. I'll explain these things. Just give me a second. Okay, it is generating the data. It will take some time. Okay, so meanwhile, we'll talk about a little more other things. See, for example, some data you might have to be safely storing it and then retrieving it. Let me just paste it here. Life cycle rules. So life cycle rules is mainly to handle the file as per the life cycle requirement. Okay. See, for example, you might have some organization rules. So after 30 days, you have to move it to some cold storage to save some cost. Similarly, after 180 days, you have to move it to archive tier, so that you save a little more higher cost. So you can move one data or information file from one particular location to another particular storage location to save a lot of cost. So you cannot go and do it manually. For example, you cannot go and filter the files that are older than 60 days or 30 days and move it to another storage. So this cannot be done in a manual way. So instead, in AWS or any online cloud storage, you have an option called lifecycle management, where you can go and write a rule, and based on the rule, automatically the files will get moved to the next tier. For example, I can just say move to cold tier or move to arcade tier, and I can select this here. So move the file from current version to the different storage class, or you can just change it to the other type of storage, so that automatically, based on the time that I'm mentioning, it will move it. See, for example, you can mention specify minimum object size, which are the file size you want to move. You can also move the files from specific age also. Okay, you can also limit the rule to a specific set of folders or only specific files and so on. Okay, you can also permanently delete certain files which are older than 1 year or older than 2 years. You can also do that. It's not like just movement, even you can also clean up also using this lifecycle management. Just a second. And before that, within S3, you have multiple different types actually. I'll explain that. Okay, let me open this. Okay, so this is what it is. So if you just go and copy this, I'll just copy it to the Excel so that you can read it properly. Okay, so these are the different type of S3 categories or storage classes that we have, and within this you can see that there are a lot of differences. The very first thing is Amazon is providing you 11 nines of durability in almost most of the categories, except of the durability is the durable, right? When you go and purchase some product or purchase some footwear or something, you talk about durability, right? How long it will be durable and so on. Similarly, durability is different from availability. So availability, if you look at here, the certain storage they are giving only 99.9, and certain storage they are giving 99.90, and something they are giving 99.99. So how do we differentiate that? So there is a availability chart. I can show you that. Availability versus uptime chart. So here, if they say that if it is available for 99.99, which means your system can go down for only 10 minutes in a particular week and only 1 minute in a particular day. So this is the availability chart that we are talking about. So most of the availability that Amazon is giving is more than 99%. Maybe we'll copy only those to quickly compare it. So from 99, we'll copy this, and then we'll delete the other ones. So even they are giving 99.99s also. Okay, we'll delete the 90s because 90s are no more there in the cloud. Cloud availability starts from 99%. So with 99%, you are getting 1 hour or 1.68 hours downtime per week. In a day, only 14 minutes the application can be down. So that is the level of availability they are giving for each of your storages. Okay, next is availability zone. So whenever you are going and storing your data in Amazon, okay, if you're storing it in Amazon S3 standard, it will be stored in at least 3 data center, 3 availability zone. If you are storing it in S3 one zone IA, the data will be kept in only one availability zone, one data center alone. So here the pricing will be very, very cheap, but the availability percentage is very low. See, compared to 99.99, this one has got only 99.50 percentage. Okay, which is very low actually, which is having a downtime of 50 minutes per week and 7 minutes per day, and in a month it can go up to close to 4 hours. Okay, in a year it can go down for 2 days. Okay, that is the level of durability, I mean availability, that they are talking about. Similarly here, whenever you go and store data, the minimum size of the data in S3 one zone IA or S3 standard IA, the file size has to be 128 KB. Okay, even in S3 Glacier archive storage, the minimum file size has to be 40 KB. So if you upload small files like 10 KB or 20 KB, if you ask me whether it will get uploaded, it will get uploaded. But the minimum charges that they will do is 128 KB. They will charge for 128 KB minimum. And even you can see that one more important class is there. So whenever you go and store the data in S3 standard IA or S3 one zone IA, it has to be stored at least for 30 days. Minimum 30 days they have to store the data. And if you are deleting the data or if you're not storing the data for 30 days, you will be asked to pay pro rata charges or early deletion charges. Like if you're taking a loan from the bank, when you're going and closing it prematurely, they will ask you to pay pre-closure charges. Similarly here, if you are storing the data in low cost storage, yeah, they are asking us guarantee that you are going to store data for 30 days or 90 days or 180 days. If you're not storing the data for 180 days in S3 Deep Glacier or S3 Glacier, then you have to pay for that. And similarly, when you are storing the data in S3 Standard and S3 Intelligent Tiering, you don't have to pay anything for data retrieval. Okay, but when you are going and storing it in cold storage or archive storage, then you also have to pay for data that you are retrieving. So for example, if you are asking for some monthly statement or some old data, your recurring data, you have to pay for that retrieval charges, for that recovery charges. Okay, so there are some differences. So these are the different type of storage that are available, and I'll show you how to select that. So when I go and upload the file, you get the option here. See, when I go and click on upload, okay, so if I scroll down, you have the option to go and select the storage classes. This is where you go and select where which exact storage type you want to upload, whether you want to upload it as a standard or whether you want to upload it to a one zone IA or whether you want to store it as a Glacier archive. So these are all for long lived data. If you want to store data for longer duration, like 180 days, 1 year, or 5 years, then you have to go and choose the data Glacier. They are all long-term storage access devices. Whereas this one, you can store it anytime, you can retrieve it anytime, and you can delete it anytime. There is no guaranteed timeline that you have to see. There is a minimum storage duration for standard infrequent access, one zone. So for these things, you have minimum guaranteed duration. Whereas for the first two, you don't have, there is no guarantee time duration. You can store it anytime, you can delete it anytime. So you have to be careful when you select the option. So for each and every file, you can select the specific option and you can upload it. Okay, you have to be very clear when it comes to exam. Now there will be questions around the minimum storage duration, as well as what is the purpose of each of this storage category. Okay, whether it is used for long living data or infrequently accessed data. So standard in IA means it is infrequently accessed. So IA stands for infrequently accessed. If you want to store data that is infrequently required, okay, you can go and store it in standard IA. If you want to store the data in frequently accessed data, then you have to either store it in standard or intelligent tiering. So the difference between standard and intelligent tiering, it's like by the name itself, you can see that it has got automatic tiering. So based on the age of the data, it will move the data from one higher tier to one low cost tier. So automatically the data cost will be reduced with intelligent tiering. But then there is one more caveat, one more additional thing that you need to remember. There is a background job that will run to check how old is the data or what is the size of the data and so on. And based on that, it will have to take the decision, right? And for taking the decision, there will be a backend algorithm that is running. And Amazon will charge you for that backend algorithm which is executing on the backend. So that is another thing that you need to remember in intelligent tiering. Okay, so whenever you have something which is very rarely used or very rarely accessed, then you can go and store it in S3 Glacier data. So these are all long-term data. These are all short-term. So if you create it today, delete it tomorrow or next week, then those are all considered as short term. But if you want to store the data for longer duration, for example, your medical X-ray or medical reports, or if you want to store any X-ray images or any videos, those things. So those will be stored for very longer duration, and it is needed for very long. So you have to store it in S3 Glacier or S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Okay, now coming down. Okay, so yesterday we were creating a website, right, or a web server, right? So here in AWS S3 also, you can go and create a static web page. Static web page is nothing but if you want to create a page which doesn't need any backend application like .NET or any backend Java runtime and all those things, we don't have to use a server for that. Okay, instead you can use the AWS S3 for static web hosting. For example, HTML, XML, and all these things, it doesn't need any server-side processing or it doesn't need any backend programming language. So what you can do is, if you go to the bucket here on the specific bucket, you go to the properties. At the very bottom, you have the static website hosting. You can use this bucket to host a website also or redirect a request to another web server. So here I'll go and enable it, and like it will ask me what is the name of the index file. So if the index file name is index.html, you can leave it as such, or if you have uploaded it as an index.htm, then better I'll just go and rename it. Okay, then I'll upload this. Okay, so I'll just give index.html. You can also leave it because the default it will have index.html. And if you are having some error page, you can also give some guidance. Like if there is an error, you can ask them to check the proxy settings, or you can ask them to check the network settings, and you can give some guidance in the error file. That also you can make it. So I'll just go and save the changes. Now, if I go to Amazon S3 and go to the buckets, I'll just upload that new index.html file. So extension is different, right? I'll just upload the file here. Okay, now if I go to the properties, I'll get a new link here. So you can see that precision test bucket 01 hyphen website. So this is the static website link. You can copy this link and you can try to access it here. See, now it is saying there is an access issue or access is forbidden. Maybe like because of the permission, it is not allowing me. Let me just go and check for the permission. Okay, it says objects can be publicly accessed, but still it's not allowing me. Let me go and check the individual objects. Okay, block all public access is enabled, is off. Okay, currently like the access control is limited. Okay, let me go and change it. Currently you are able to only list and write it at the bucket level. Let me go and edit the bucket policy, and I'll create a policy generator. Okay, the page is having some issue. Let me just wait for a second. So you'll also have a lot of examples here. You can also do that, but it's pretty straightforward. Just a second. There is some issue with my browser. Okay, let me make changes to the public policy. I thought like there used to be an easier option where you can go and make it public here. Okay, nowadays they are not giving the option. Let me also check if there are multiple versions. Okay, okay, I'll select the bucket. Okay, I'll try to take an example here. Okay, I'll check on this. There is some issue with my account. Okay, so meanwhile, I'll quickly explain few more things before we take small break here. Okay, so here, if you look at the logs, you can also go and enable all the logs. Okay, so whoever is accessing the bucket, whoever is modifying it, whatever changes they are making to the S3 bucket, all those logs can be enabled so that if you want to check who is making the changes, who is modifying it, who is deleting, so all the access logs will be enabled if you go and enable the server access logging. And even if you want to make all the actions like all the API action, when you want to upload a file or download a file or making some configuration changes, all those API related activities will also be enabled, and all the logs, the CloudTrail is the logging service in AWS. Okay, all the API related operations access will be monitored here. You can also go and configure that by default. And if you want to receive a notification, if someone has deleted a file or if someone has uploaded a new file or new version has been uploaded, you can also receive a notification whenever there is an object removal or object put, post or copy. Whenever someone is uploading a file, any changes made to a file, you can receive an email notification or you can receive a particular notification on an application also. So if you go to SNS topic, you will be able to receive it in an email, or you can able to receive it in an SMS, or you can also say get it in a specific format. Okay, so you can also get the notification here. Okay, we'll take a small break and then we'll see how to create file storage, how to create the other storage type, and check on that. Okay, I'll stop the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll continue our session. Now we'll talk about file storage and the practical on file storage. Okay. So on the file storage side, okay, we have got multiple file storages, EFS. There are file storage like FSX and so on. So we'll primarily discuss EFS now, and then move on with discussing the other AWS backup and other services. So FSX is mainly for servers which are on Windows background, but Elastic File System, it can be used for primarily Linux operating system, because on the back end it uses network file sharing or network file system protocol NFS for accessing the file shares. So with EFS, we will go and create the file shares and access it from the Linux operating system. Okay, this is mainly for mapping the file system or mounting the file system to store the data. Okay, so the main advantage of going with storage as a service in the cloud, you don't have to manage the OS, or you don't have to manage the operating system. You don't have to manage the server sizing and all those things. So you can directly go and start using it as a serverless service. So it is simple. When we say serverless, so server is always needed to host your file share or any services, but you don't have to manage it as a customer. So AWS as a provider, they will manage the server. That's why it is called serverless. And even it is storage as a service. Okay, so you just have to store the data, and then you have to pay for store and pay for the actual consumption or actual storage size. Okay, and also there are costs for retrieval or accessing the data outside of the region. Okay, so it is very easy. You can eventually grow virtually unlimited. Okay, there is unlimited capacity, so you can expand yourself whenever you need it. So with EFS, you can use this EFS as a backend system for your EC2 instance. It can be used as a backend file share for EC2, ECS, EKS, and Lambda functions, and so on. So you can use it for any of these particular compute services. So you'll be accessing this EFS using a file system interface, and all the input output will happen through that EFS NFS protocol. So I'll show you how to create the EFS file system and how to access it using a particular server. Okay, so you can also store huge amount of data, but this is primarily a file storage service, right? Unlike the other storage services, this is primarily a file storage service through which you can access it from both cloud, as well as you can access it from on-premises data center also through VPN. You can access the file share services from both cloud as well as on-prem server also. So it provides you a file share interface, and that file share interface is nothing but the API for accessing the file share. Okay, I'll show you the practical on how to do that. Okay, this particular, unlike S3, EFS is a regional service. Okay, you can create EFS for a particular data center or a particular region and access it from that particular region also. Okay, I'll show you the lab on how to create it and how to get that access. Okay, so let me show it in the console. Go to the AWS console, search for EFS, and then you get the option to go and create the file system. So this is the managed file storage for EC2. So in S3 we created buckets, but in EFS we have to create the file system. Okay, I'll just delete this one we created last time. Okay, I'll create a new file system. So here you get two options. So if you want to have high availability, then you can go and store it in standard option. Like S3 standard, we have EFS also in standard option. EFS standard option will give you high availability. So high availability means your data is getting stored in multiple availability zone, multiple data center, and it will be redundant. Even if one data center goes down or one availability goes down, your data will still be available. Similarly, this one, it is one zone option. One zone option, there is no redundancy. Your data will be stored only within the single data center or single availability zone. This is called EFS one zone option. So there is no HA. Okay, so you can choose by default. Generally, we'll go for standard option, and even the name that you give for the file system is optional. Okay, precision file system 1, and you can give up to 256 characters in EFS. Like S3 has got a lot of limitation, but in EFS you can have letters, numbers. You can also use these symbols also. Okay, and you can create it. So if you want to customize it, you can go and customize it. But let's try to create a file system without customizing it. So it is going and creating it now. So you can go and create a file system quickly like this without a lot of customization. If you want to do customization, you can also do that. And you can also select a different VPC that we created. Or if you want to go and select a specific subnet, you can also do that. Okay, now I'll just go and say precision file system 2. And this time I'll go and do a customization. So in the customization option, you get the option to go and enable automatic backup. So enable automatic backup means whatever data you are storing in EFS, it will automatically get backed up using AWS backup service, which is the AWS native backup offering. But for the backup, because it is going to again accumulate a lot of additional space, right? You have to pay extra for that. But you get additional safety, but then you have to enable this automatic backup. Okay, so here it also gives you life cycle management, that the data, if it is older than 30 days, it will move to infrequently accessed category. And then if it is not accessed for a longer duration, you can also delete it. So you have different standard practices here. After 7 days, you can move, or you can move it after 60 days, or you can move it after 90 days. So based on the duration of access, you can transition it to lower storage for reducing the cost. Okay, life cycle management, it is always for reducing the cost and balancing the for reducing cost and maintaining the performance. So frequently accessed data will be stored in the cost standard tier. The less frequently accessed data will be moving to infrequently accessed tier, one zone IA. So here you have two performance mode. As I told you yesterday, there are in general any storage we talk about, it will have two performance mode. The first one is the standard performance, and the second one is the maximum IOPS which we provide. Even in EBS also we saw general purpose. Even in EBS we saw max IO, which is they called it as uh, throughput optimized, or they called it as provisioned IOPS. You can go and provision how much input output you want to mention. Okay, so there are two options. If you want to increase the throughput, if you want to increase the operation speed of the data transfer, you can go for max IO. Or else if you are just doing web service or web server management and providing content access, then I think general purpose should be okay. Only if the data read writes are happening very frequently, or if you are connecting to a system which is highly related to data transfer, then you can go and use the max IO option. For example, if you are traveling and if you are using Google Maps, or if you are using any online application which are highly dependent on the live data, then you need to use the max IO, because if you are seeing the old data, then people will get misleaded, or it won't give you the latest thing. Even if it is share market, or anything that is related to financial, all those things, it needs high accuracy. So if you want to have application which has high accuracy information, then you need to go for max IO option. If it is general purpose, like for example any website or travel portal or anything, so it need not be highly accurate, but it has to eventually be consistent. So you can go for general purpose on that case. And if you want to do a lot of transfer, download, upload, and all those things, then go for the provisioned option, where you can go and customize how much data you want to transfer and how much you want to do it. So throughput busting option will also help you to increase the throughput, but there will be some minor delay whenever there is a change happening. It will change little slowly, but then the provisioned IOPS, it is giving you a lot of speed and performance. Okay, generally you can go for provisioned option, where you can go and provision how much speed you want, but bursting will happen automatically based on the increase in workload. Okay, it is automatic. So now by default, all the data that is stored in AWS is encrypted by default. Okay, and the encryption key will be getting stored in key management service, KMS. Okay, so all the data is encrypted by default, including S3 or EFS. The data is always encrypted, and it will go and store the data in this specific KMS, key management system. So you can just go and do this. Okay, and then click next. And here you can also choose from which particular system you want to access this particular EFS. You want to access it from data center 1 or 2 or 3, or if you want to access it from all the data center, you can also go and give it. So here, important thing is there is a security group that are attached to it. So if you want to allow access for a particular system, you need to go and change it. By default, EFS uses NFS version 4. Okay, that is the latest version. So it is very secure, safe. Okay, so it uses NFS, network file sharing version 4 for accessing the data. So I'll show you a practical now. Okay, let me go and create it. And then, so here I don't want to prevent root access, or I don't want to enforce read-only access. By default, I'm just going to create it, and then let's see. So now it is going to review and create it. Now I'm going to create the file system, and then it is getting created. The first one is already created, but now I'll just go and create a EC2 instance for accessing that file share. So unlike S3, you cannot directly go and access the uh, content from within the operating system. Sorry, from the internet. This is a file share, right? You have to access it from the operating system. You cannot access it directly through HTTP or HTTPS. So I'll have to go and create a EC2 instance for accessing it. I'll go and launch an instance. Okay, I'll call it as file server 1 or whatever. Okay, so I'll create any operating system you can choose in Linux, and I can choose, I'll create a new key pair. I'll call this as Mumbai September 2022. Okay, I'll also use the same security group if possible, the default one. Okay, I'll launch the instance. Okay, once after the instance is launched, I will log into the instance. Meanwhile, I'll just go and see what is the status of the EFS. So EFS is created now, and it has given a file system ID. This is a unique ID that it will give, okay, for each of the file system that gets created. So there is a FSID, that is a unique ID for each of the file system. So in EFS, we call it as file system. In S3, we call it as bucket. Okay, so I'll open this file system, and now you can see that it has given a DNS name also. So it is unique for each and every region. So unlike S3, S3 is a global service. It's a global unique thing. Okay, so you cannot create the same name in a different account also. But here, S3, I mean, EFS file system is limited to a particular region. So you should not use the same name for another bucket within the same region. Otherwise, it should work. Okay, so it will give a DNS name as well as a unique ID also. So let me scroll down. Okay, and then I'll just copy the access point here. So here I can see that it has given me 3 different IP address, because there are 3 mount points that are created for 3 different data center. See, for data center 1A, 1B, and 1C, there are 3 different IP range. So it has assigned 3 IP range. You can use any of this IP to access it, or you can use the same mount target for accessing it. So you can use either of them. See, if you click on attach, it will give me 2 options. You can use EFS file system, or you can use NFS file system. You can use both of them. You can use the DNS name if the DNS resolution is working, or else you can use the IP address option also if the DNS is not working properly. There are 2 options. If I click mount IP, it will give me the IP address to mount it. If I'm using the DNS option, it will give me the EFS, the DNS file system name. See, even with the IP, you get the option to go and choose from which data center you want to access. If you're selecting different data center, it will give me different link actually. Okay, let me copy this, and then let me try to mount this. And I'll first log into the other EC2 instance. Okay, I'll copy the EC2 instance IP. I'll just log into the system. Mumbai. Okay, so I'm accessing it from the putty, right? So it is currently PEM file. I need to convert that into a PPK file. Let me quickly show you how to do that. You have to use putty gen tool to convert the key from one format to another format. Okay, currently I've got a PEM file. I can easily convert that from PEM file to PPK format. So I can just select the PEM file. Now I just need to save that file in another format, which is PPK format. I can just say Mumbai, September 2022, and I can just give the same name because it is a different extension, right? It is a putty private key extension. So I can also change it. So even you have the option to download the key in PPK also. Better you can do that. You can either use the putty tool to change it, or you can also putty gen tool to change it, or you can also use that option to download it directly. Okay, let's try. It should work. It's taking some time. Okay, let me retry. Okay, because we just created the key, right? Okay, let's see why we are not able to access it. Maybe there is a security group that is blocking, or the ports are not allowed. Let's go and check the security group rules. Okay. Okay, see, it says the traffic is allowed only from this particular security group. So that is the reason it is not allowing me. I can just go and edit the inbound rule, and I can allow traffic for SSH. Okay, let me change it. Okay, let me delete this group and then I'll allow it. Okay, you can specifically allow a 22 port. That should be okay. Or if you want to allow all traffic, you can also allow that. But generally, it's the best practice to allow only specific 22 port. Now I can just try to restart the session. Okay, now it is connected. Okay, so always whenever there is a connection issue, you have to go and check the security group. Okay. So now, first I have to install the NFS or EFS package. So these packages will not be available by default. So I'll just go and install the EFS package first. Okay, it says no. Okay, so now let's install the EFS package. So once after you install the EFS package, you can just go and copy the mount point and then try to mount it here. So before mounting it, you need to create a folder on where exactly you want to mount it. Okay, let me do one thing. I'll just go and create a directory. I'll just call it a stan EFS, and then now I'll just paste it. So here, instead of EFS, I want to mount it to stan EFS folder. Okay, let's see. So now also it is waiting for some time. Okay, it mounted it. Perfect. So now if I just go and say mount, it will say show me like what are the different mount points here. Okay, so even if I go and say df-h, disk free space -h, so it is showing me that I've got around 8 exabyte that I can store within the stan EFS folder. Okay, so that is the file system which is mounted now. I can just go and store 8 exabytes of data. Okay, it is a very huge storage. See, if I let me just show you something. If I go and enter into that full file system, there is nothing inside it. I can just go and say make directory Karthik, or I'll just say make directory Sasi, and I can create some folders. I can create some empty files here. Okay, now if I go and say ls, it has got 2 folders and 1 file. Okay, this is one server. So I can go and do the same from another server also. Let me just do that. Let me go and create one more server. Okay, let me launch the instance. So now I'll show you how to do concurrent access. See, EBS volume, you can do only one-to-one mapping. So if you're creating a EBS volume, you can mount it to only one EC2 instance. But now this one, you can map it to multiple systems. If you're creating a EFS file system, you can map it to multiple EC2 instances. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, let's give it a minute. So it will get launched. Once after it is available, I'll show you how to mount and how to access it from multiple server. So while that is happening, I'll also use this server for creating this as a web server also. So yesterday we were seeing that, right? How to create a web server. I'll just install these packages and let me just say Apache Web Server 1. Okay, I'll install the package, I'll update the package and then update the path also. So this particular server is now a file server as well as it is a web server also. So it is just installing the latest HTTPD package. So while this is happening, I'll also go and log into the second system. Okay, let me open up the putty session. Okay, I'll install the EFS package first. Okay, now I'll also go and show you how to mount the same mount point in the system. Okay, if I go and attach it, I'll get the link again. I'll copy this. So I'll also create a directory, stan EFS, and this server also. You can give different name also if you want. Okay, now I'm okay. It says stan EFS does not exist. Okay, I have to give the exact path. I have to give the root path. So since I missed it, it is showing error because I created it in the root itself. Okay, here I have not mentioned the root path. Now, if I go to stan EFS, you will see that all the content that I created in another server. So on this server I created last time. So it is showing up in this server. See, let me do one thing. I'll create one folder here, make directory Anto, and then let's go and check it on this server. See, Anto is also here. So I can access the same file system from different system also. Touch, Chennai, Mumbai. I can just go and make ls here. See, whatever I'm doing on one server, it is concurrently accessed on another server, and you can make changes in multiple servers also. So that is the beauty of EFS. Okay, you can concurrently access it from multiple servers, and you get 8 exabytes of data. You can access it from multiple systems. So now I'll also make the server as a web server. I'll just install the HTTPD package, and I'll install I'll configure some small page. Okay, I'll show you how to do load balancing also. Okay, either for file server or web server, you will have multiple server in your organization. So for example, we were talking yesterday, right? So we'll have, if you have more than one server, so you'll have to have something in front of that to balance the load. Okay, that's what we call it as load balancer, right? To share the traffic or to balance the traffic between multiple systems. So we go and create load balancer. If you have more than one server, we need to have load balancer in front. So whenever the user is accessing, you have to give the load balancer entry to them so that they can access the services from multiple systems. Okay, I'll show you how to create a load balancer and how to distribute the traffic across multiple instances now. Okay, it can be file service or web service or anything. So you can just follow me on how to do that. Okay, so here within the EFS or sorry EC2 console, if you scroll to the bottom, you can see that the load balancer option is here. And before doing that, you need to create a target group. Target group here now is two systems. I've got two servers which are acting as file server and web server. So these are the two servers I've got, right? Web server 1 and I've got web server 2. So I want to send the traffic to both the systems. See, in real time, both the servers will have identical web pages. But for understanding, what I've done is I've created web pages with some small changes. See, if I go and access this web page, it will show me welcome to Advantage Pro and with web server 1. Okay, on the second server it will just show only one difference, that will be showing us web server 2. Just for identification purpose, I've just created a small change. Otherwise, in real time, all the servers will have the exact identical data. Okay, now let me go and create the load balancer now. And before that, I'll create a target group where exactly the request should reach. I'll create the target group, and here I can just go and select the instances. Okay, target group name, I'll say precision TG1, target group 1. And if you have configured the services in different port number, you can also change the port number, but I've given the services in the same 80 port number. Okay, and if you want to give a specific path to your health check, see, whenever there is a uh, issue with one server, or whenever there is a issue with the web service, automatically the load balancer will identify the health of the backend system, and it will redirect the traffic to the healthy node alone. So it will skip the traffic to the non-healthy node. Okay, you can also configure the health check here and ask to check whether the index.html is accessible, or whether that particular path is accessible or not. Okay, I can also do that. Okay, I'll just say var www html. Within this path, I want to monitor whether this particular web page is accessible. If this web page is not accessible, then automatically it will go and redirect the traffic to the unhealthy node. Oh, sorry, the healthy nodes. Okay, let me go and create the target. Okay, it will ask me which server I want to add. It is showing me these two servers. I'll add both the servers. I'll select both of them and I can include both of them. Okay, now both the servers are running, and both the server health status it is checking. Okay, it will check and confirm. But before that, I'll just go and create the target group. Okay, when you want to have a load balancer, you need to first create the target group. So here, the target group is nothing but your backend system. So these are the two systems which are your target group. I'm creating these two systems into one target group. And now I'm going to configure the load balancer to send the traffic to this particular target group. Okay, now I'm just going to the load balancer now. I'll create a load balancer. Load balancer, from by the name itself, you are easily understanding, right? It's a kind of service to balance the HTTP request or HTTPS request to the backend system. So I'll just call it as precision load balancer 1. Okay, so if you want to allow it for access only within your organization, AWS, within AWS console or within your environment, you can call it as internal. But if you want to allow it to be accessed from the internet, from the outside world, you can select internet facing. Okay, you cannot change this after the load balancer is created. So you need to select the right scheme before selecting it. Okay, I can just go see if you are using IP version 4 and IP version 6, you can select dual stack. Currently, we are still using IP version 4 in many of the organization. So here you can just select IP version 4. And if you want to access it from all the data center, you can select all the data center. So I think my servers are both in data center 1A, but in general, you will create servers in multiple different data center so that the load is scattered across different availability zone. Okay, I'll just select the default. Okay, this is fine. So here is where I have to select the target group which I created. Okay, so I created the precision target group, and this is what you have to select it here. Okay, if my web server is going to be accessed from global location, for example, if people is accessing it from India, Singapore, US, Europe, then you can go and enable this global accelerator so that the content will be cached in all the regions and they can access it in a better latency or in much better speed. Okay, so only if you have global people accessing it, you can enable that. Otherwise, you will unnecessarily add some cost to your service. Okay, so create the load balancer now. And once after you create the load balancer, you will get a unique ID, unique link for that load balancer. Now, for the end user, instead of giving each and every server IP address or name, you can just directly give them the load balancer ID. Okay, let's give it a minute. Okay, you can see that it has given a unique DNS name. Okay, this is the name of your load balancer. I can copy this now and I can directly paste it. So it will take some time for convergence. It is still creating. You have to check the status here. So if I go to the top, it is still provisioning. Okay, wait for that. I can give the link on the chat. Okay, you can just you can also click the same link and then see whether you are able to access that particular link from your system. Okay, let's give it 1 or 2 minutes. It will take 1 or 2 minutes to complete. It is still provisioning. Oh, it's working, huh? Okay, for Prithviraj, it is working. Okay, let me also go and refresh it. Yeah, it is also working for me. See, currently it is sending my traffic to web server 2. If I refresh it again, or if I use a different browser, see, it is automatically changing my traffic to web server 1, web server 2. So it is like working like a round robin. So automatically, whenever different users are accessing it, it will redirect the traffic to multiple servers. So even one server or multiple servers are down, your traffic will still be accessible. So even it is working for Ajay also. Okay, good. Okay, so this is how you can create a load balancer and practice yourself. Most of the organization, they will have some kind of NLB cluster and load balancer like this. Okay, so if you want to go and check the logs, or if you want to access whatever is happening, I can also go and check the log information and enable it. Okay, so I can monitor it. I can also go and find out what is going on here. Let me see. Okay, you can see that the number of request count is increasing now. See, last 1 hour, so you can see the request count is increasing. Okay, if there is an error, you can also find out that if there is an HTTPS 5xx or 4xx, there is an error, you can also find out here. I'm not sure how many of you know about 4xx and 5xx. See, this is HTTP error code. So whenever you are working on any website or any development, so you need to be understanding this. So whenever there is a 4xx, then which means it is a client error. The issue has to be fixed on the client side. If it is a 5xx, it is a error on the server side. Then you have to raise a ticket with server team to check what is wrong and they will have to fix it. So these are the two different error we get. 4xx means client side error. The issue has to be fixed on the client side, either on the browser or anything on the actual system. But if it is a 5xx error, then the issue is with the server side. So server team has to check on the Apache web server or IAS web server and they have to fix it. So if you are receiving 2xx message, which means it is a successful message. So you are able to access the website and you are able to get the data successfully. And if there is a 3xx message, then your request is getting redirected to a different system rather than the system you are targeting. So these are the 5 different messages you will get. 1xx is information, 2xx is successful access to the website or the server, So 4xx means it is a client side error. The end user has to fix the issue on their browser or in their laptop. 5xx means it's a server side error. Okay, these are the message that you get. So whenever you see a 5xx message, then which means it is server side, there is some issue is going on. If it is a 4xx message, then there is a client side. See, there are 4xx error. So for some people, it is not working. Maybe because like their browser is not allowed or they have some issues with their laptop. Okay, so that is how you can find out. So now for me it is working. It is automatically getting redirected to web server 1 and 2 in round robin. So if I refresh it here, I can see the count here. I can see that the request has completely increased. Okay, you can also watch it in CloudWatch. You can also see how many active connections are there, how many 2xx message. So these are the successful messages. I'm seeing these many successful connection. There are close to 40 connections that has been made in quick succession. Okay, also when you go and check the log, currently it is in the time zone is in different time zone. It will be in UTC. Yeah, so you have to add +5 to check your time zone. Your time zone is +530, right? So from the UTC. So whatever time that you are seeing here, it is UTC time actually. So if you go to the CloudWatch, you can also change that time setting also. If you want to see it in your own time zone, you can also change it. So you can also check the same in your CloudWatch also. For the last 10 minutes or the last 5 minutes, you can go and check what is going on. Okay, either you can monitor it in the same console within the load balancer, or you can go and check it in the CloudWatch also. Okay, CloudWatch is the AWS monitoring service. We'll talk about it a little later. Okay, so you have to practice these things. Okay, creating target group, load balancer, creating S3 bucket and uploading data, creating EFS file system and uploading it and accessing it from a server. So these are the things that you guys need to practice it now. So now we'll see what are the use cases that we are going to see. So let me stop there.